Perhaps state your name, what you're studying, and shoot your questions.
I have one. From a VC perspective, and actually I was at BP, and we had an internal corporate venturing arm when I was there, and then they closed it down for a few years, and I think they reinstated it. But from a VC perspective, what are the most exciting clean technologies that you see coming out now? Where's the real buzz?
Well, it's kind of different from our perspective because we get excited about things that can be strategic for us. The venture capital investment community in general is excited about different things because they're primarily looking for a return within their 10-year time window. And many of them have been struggling to date, to be very honest. This sector has been very challenging for venture capital, but they've learned. So they're starting to move out of the capital heavy into the more smart IT things, for example, software as service businesses with wind sensors and things as such, provide real value, low cost, etc. Those are the real hot topics, I'd say, in that community. For us, we're often looking for things that are very strategic and fit our business development plans. Yeah.
When we started looking for money, we thought about quite deliberately about what boxes we could tick for various types of funding. So we decided to stay relatively far away from the corporates, but we did go to Shell Foundation, which has an interest in clean tech in emerging markets. We went back to DFID, the UK government, who had funds available for private sector engagement. And we sort of deliberately didn't get too close to the hardcore VC
But I think
world.
it depends on what phase you're in, because yes, as a very, very early start, you probably look for a grant to prove out your business, prove out your technology. At some point, I think one of the big problems in Europe is that entrepreneurs are so scared of more classic venture capital finance. The fact is, yes, you're giving away from your percentage of your company, but if your company is going to be 10 times as big, it doesn't really matter, you know. And that capital is substantially larger. You get into millions instead of a couple of 100,000, and it can help you jumpstart that. But in the right time. And at some point, you do need big partners to give you the market access and the partnerships and so on.
Please.
Hi, I'm from LBS. I'm an executive MBA and currently working in a major corporate company in Chevron in liquefied natural gas. So very interested in CleanTech. I have a question for Amrita. How did the team, it's more a process question, how did the teams get matched between the MBAs and the scientists? How did that happen?
Chris should feel free to jump in this. I happened to join the team a little bit later due to scheduling conflicts, but my understanding was a similar kickoff is held around the same time at UCL, and one of my MBA colleagues happened to be there, and I believe Chris and one of his postdoctoral research colleagues had the opportunity to meet with another scientist from UCL during that event. So people either looking for a team or people looking for ideas had an opportunity to mingle at that time. This was actually going to be a suggestion we both wanted to throw out, was to see if a common event could be organized to get both these groups of people together in one place.
Just to jump in quickly on this, and this is what we've been trying to do as well in terms of organizing different events from the CleanTech Challenge. So we've had that similar that Amit was talking about. We've had the UCL kickoff last term in November. That and obviously those events are open to everyone. And here as well, as you can see around you, I think there are a few people from UCL, a few people from Imperial as well have signed up. So what we encourage people to do is to mix as well after the actual event during the networking drinks. What we're trying to also do this year is to make our website a lot more interactive. So have forums, things that where you can post. We did that last year, but then that had limited success, and hopefully this year it'll work better. Is for you to, whoever's looking for an idea, whoever's looking for a team, to sort of post it there, and then you can hopefully sort of find teams.
Please.
Okay. Hi, my name is Vitaly. I go to CAS Business School, Masters in Finance. I have a question to all three experts, is that okay? It's a simple question. How important is the participation of students, team member, whatever, with legal background and with designer's background?
Designers
Like design, art?
of, sorry, marketing?
No,
Legal,
design.
legal, and
Design
do you mean
background.
engineering design?
No. I mean design, like art, like drawing. You know.
Okay.
Oh, right.
Because the reason I'm asking about design is because, like, I assume people like to see the picture of the product, like IT design, not in the sense of drawing. You know.
So are you asking in the context of the CleanTech Challenge competition, or just
Yeah.
CleanTech entrepreneurship in general?
No, well, entrepreneurship in general, but CleanTech Challenge mostly. Yeah.
Mostly CleanTech Challenge.
Because there is patent issue, and you know, representing the product visually, I thought was important as well.
Okay, cool. Perhaps Amrita, if you have exposure on that, and maybe some of the CleanTech committee who's got experience from last year.
So I believe that there was one team last year that was participating that actually had, but that was more of a design engineer who was involved, and this was, I believe, a solar-based product, and they were actually involved in the building of that product, was part of the team. My answer to that would be, it depends. It genuinely depends on exactly the type of solution that your business plan is addressing and the specific requirements of the team you need to bring it to market. So there is no one answer that would fit every team.
And what about legal? Like, how did you manage a patent situation?
Yeah, in our case, we were fortunate in that a lot of that work had already been initiated by Chris with UCL Technology Licensing Office, and had already either had patent applications or patents in place at that time. So again, depending on the stage at which your venture is at, and maybe he can comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually that is something that would have been extremely useful actually, but it's very industry specific, so it's not very easy to find the right people really who have the perfect knowledge for your technology, I think.
I mean, with the legal background?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would consider both of those expertise more functional. In our own company, we tend to call them the functions, and you outsource it. So you can do something similar. You can create your core team and ask someone to help out on that front in exchange for, I don't know, something. But it does depend on how important it is to your proposition. I doubt that you'd have a patent in place, or even innovation, what's that called, anyway, listed by the time this event closes. Plus you can do a lot, but it would be good to find out if there's any freedom to operate. But you can do quite a bit of searching yourself on the online sources available. If you really go deep into it, you're going to need a specialized IP lawyer, and you wouldn't find them here.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, practically, it's important to get your prior art data in. If you think you've got a case, even if it's only roughly put together, you get an application in, and you can pick which jurisdiction you put your application in. You can always come back when you've got a little bit more funds and perhaps you've firmed up your idea and revise. But if you've got your mark in the ground of your prior art application, even if you write it yourself, which effectively is what I know others have done, they just draft something and get it in, because that's the key thing. To get it in quickly, and you don't need to spend a lot of money on patent lawyers at an early stage. I would, I'd definitely advise that. So, yeah, just being practical about it.
All right. Thank you to all three of you.
Yep, over there.
question for Ms. Townsend. Firstly, I apologize for wearing a grey suit. That is all I could find. But I want to know, how many companies have you actually helped from inception to them actually becoming viable entities? Thank you very much.
That's a good question. We tend to say, they always ask, what stage do you invest in? And we tend to say, well, it depends. When we have enough proof that it can be strategic to us and that we can help out, then we'll get engaged. From BP's side, we only did one spin out from Cambridge. I was in the board of that company for a while. And we can do it. The problem is patience. It takes a lot of time, and we don't want to fail as a director on the board. So yeah, it's very time consuming. We'll have to be selective. We currently, within Castro Ventures, are also initiating new things. Like I'm seed funding an initiative in India right now, and hopefully that will turn into a company in the next few months. So if we see something that we believe has real potential, then we can do that.
Thank you very much.
More questions? Question for Nick. How difficult do you think, could you just comment on your entrepreneurship experience in emerging markets, Kenya specifically? That's part one of the question. And maybe just comment a little bit more on the safe environment you were talking about while you were small. Because too many times there's temptation to just when you're sort of a novice entrepreneur, to just kind of go all in, make your mistakes while, kind of have the whole landscape mapped out right at the beginning. Maybe talk about that a little bit.
Well, the first one's important, and I spent a lot of time going in and out of various emerging markets with my Vodafone Group hat on. What becomes immediately obvious, and many of you will know this, that there isn't one type of emerging market. Some places are easier to do business in than others, and for all of Vodafone's brand and might and dollars, we got burned quite heavily trying to take M-Pesa out in India because the regulators simply said no way. Whereas in Kenya, we had a relatively small market, we had good networks, we had a good relationship with the regulator, and we were able to run really quickly. So when if you're taking a step back, you've got to think about the armory you've got and the networks you've got, and who are you going to be, which stakeholders are you going to be able to influence, and pick carefully. People get very excited about India, to be frank, and it's actually a difficult place to do business unless you've got very strong local partners on the ground, and that's been a hard-won experience. Whereas you go over to Bangladesh, I'm involved with a mobile money scheme there. Things are just more manageable and bite-sized to get work done. So I think that's important. Your second question.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
On the first one, right? Just can you
Yeah.
comment a little bit more about your end customer, because ultimately your end customer isn't like a rich guy.
Yeah.
It's very poor. I wouldn't use the word poor, but
Yeah.
some customers on the margins who probably need a service, and identifying that need and connecting with them.
Yeah.
Because the first inclination for any
Yep.
big business would be that
Yep.
I can make money off that.
Well, actually, and again, it's just true. That's the corporate mentality. They don't really. They just expect large business opportunities to fall out of the sky before they make an investment. And Vodafone wouldn't even look at something where they didn't think they could make $100 million, within a 12-month period, which is just a crazy number, because they don't. Big opportunities like that don't just fall out of the sky unless you go and acquire somebody else's business. Yeah, it's not easy. So for me, and this is where eventually the grey hairs and the frustrations came in with working in a corporate environment. You have to go into the market and work with customers. So the first thing I did was put a team on the ground out there talking to customers. And what we did with M-Cope was exactly the same. We had a half-baked bit of technology. We put it straight into the hands of customers. And you just watch what people do with it. And then build your business around what you see in the marketplace. And then you can make all the parts of the jigsaw work together. The only example I've ever seen, which I think is brilliant, was I went to Loughborough University where I did my PhD. The landscape gardener there, they'd over the summer they'd done a whole load of work on the grounds, and all the students came back and it was just bare soil and there were no footpaths. And this landscape gardener, I remember it was a big debate because we all got quite excited about it. What are we all expected to walk over the mud? And we were all quite annoyed about it, but it was a deliberate plan to watch where students walked, and then they came in and put the parts over the trails of where the students walked. And you think, well, that's just, that all he was doing was watching how people behaved in the real world, and then you finish it all off in relation to what you observe. And it was probably one of my first examples of actually that's very smart, really smart. And he got the parts in the right place. So I think it is, you just, and this is where it gets difficult in a corporate environment, because you're often not given that space to get in and to experiment. You're under 3-month, 6-month, 9-month reporting cycles, and that's too short to find the answer. And I think that's partly what you're saying.
In our case, that's why we set up these separate teams that have sort of are operating at arm's length, that we have the freedom to start experimenting, trying things out.
And not all corporates do that, unfortunately. And even in Vodafone, which is a technology company, R&D was really about 5G and 10 years away. It wasn't really about research in the consumer experience space. That was, I think very few organisations do that well. And the way to do it is to deliberately create that space for teams that are interested in that to go and experiment. I've now forgotten your second question. So
It's starting small, and the lessons to be learned from that. Because the temptation for at least novice entrepreneurs to just kind of go all in, and just kind of wanting to do everything from start to finish. So maybe comment a bit about that.
Yeah. So start small and start simple. And there's a great, there's a couple of articles in MPS actually. We piloted something and then turned off 80% of the functionality and went with the simplest version we could create. And then once you get it accepted, you can start to layer more complexity onto your business model and new
whole
services.
hype around minimal viable products.
Yeah.
You guys must have read it. It works.
Yeah, definitely.
It works.
Yeah, absolutely.